Walk into an American supermarket, and the shredded cheese wall looks almost impossible to mess up. Every bag shows golden cheddar, snowy mozzarella, or a perfectly melted taco. Pick a flavor, open the zipper, and dinner is halfway finished. Then you turn over the bag. Suddenly, your cheese has potato starch, cornstarch, powdered cellulose, calcium sulfate, and something called natamycin. Depending on the variety, you may find several of them in one package. So are companies secretly replacing cheese with wood pulp? Not exactly. The answer is less frightening, but much more useful in the kitchen. Many of these bags contain genuine dairy cheese. The extra ingredients are there to stop the shreds from sticking together and growing mold before you buy them. However, the coating that keeps cheese loose inside a cold plastic bag can become a problem when you expect that cheese to melt into a smooth sauce. We are examining 6 specific shredded cheese products that should stay out of queso, fondue, Alfredo, and serious macaroni and cheese. Then we will look at 3 alternatives with cleaner formulas. One of those alternatives contains nothing but the ingredients needed to make cheese, but it also comes with a safety consideration that deserves more attention than the cellulose headlines usually receive. First, we need to examine why the biggest cheese section in the supermarket sells so much powder along with its cheese. Shredded natural cheese has become a multi-billion-dollar American category, with recent industry reporting placing annual sales around $7 billion and unit sales just under $2 billion. That convenience has created an unusual manufacturing problem. A block of cheddar can sit peacefully inside a sealed wrapper. Cut that block into thousands of thin strands, and the situation changes. The surface area increases dramatically. Moisture and fat reach the exposed surfaces, the shreds press against one another, and the entire package can fuse into one damp orange brick. That would be inconvenient for the shopper and expensive for the manufacturer. Cheese companies solve the problem by tumbling fresh shreds with a dry anti-caking mixture. Picture grated cheddar falling through a rotating stainless steel drum while a fine white powder spreads across every strand. The coating absorbs surface moisture and creates a physical barrier between pieces. Powdered cellulose is one of the ingredients used for that job. Cellulose is the structural fiber found in plants. Commercial powdered cellulose can come from processed wood or other plant material, but calling it sawdust is misleading. Sawdust is waste from sawing lumber. Food-grade cellulose is purified and processed to meet ingredient specifications. Your body does not digest cellulose in the same way it digests fat, protein, or starch. That is hardly unusual. Cellulose is already present in fruits, vegetables, grains, and other plant foods. This matters because the strongest case against cellulose-coated cheese is not that a small serving will poison you. Powdered cellulose has a long history of food use, and regulators consider appropriate uses safe. The better argument happens in the frying pan. Anti-caking powder is designed to stop cheese surfaces from joining. Melting cheese smoothly requires those surfaces to soften, flow, and combine. The 2 goals are pulling in opposite directions. That does not mean every coated cheese refuses to melt. Research on shredded cheddar found relatively small consumer differences at lower anti-caking levels. Once application rates rose above roughly 3% by weight, however, ratings for melted flavor, texture, or appearance began to suffer. The exact result depended on the coating and its concentration. You cannot look at a retail bag and determine that concentration. Manufacturers generally list the ingredients, not the percentage applied. That leaves shoppers with clues instead of laboratory measurements. The first clue is the number of anti-caking ingredients. One starch is different from a blend containing 2 starches: cellulose, calcium sulfate, and a mold inhibitor. The second clue is the cut. Fine shreds expose more surface area than thick shreds, so more cheese comes into contact with the coating. The third clue is the recipe. A light dusting over cold tacos is forgiving. A 3-ingredient cheese sauce is not. When cheese provides nearly all the body and texture, every added powder has a chance to announce itself. Natamycin also needs a proper introduction. It is not an anti-caking agent. It is an antifungal compound used to inhibit mold and yeast. United States regulations permit it on cheese under defined conditions, with a maximum level of 20 parts per million in the finished product. Finding natamycin on a label does not prove the product is dangerous. It tells you the manufacturer designed the bag for a longer commercial life. Someone prioritizing the shortest possible ingredient list may reasonably prefer a product without it, while another shopper may prefer the extra protection against mold. Our skip verdict, therefore, has a specific meaning. Skip these products when the cheese needs to melt beautifully or when you're paying for a premium cheese experience. They may remain perfectly usable as convenient cold toppings. And because companies reformulate products, compare the exact bag in your store with the ingredients discussed here. A brand name is not a permanent recipe. Number 6, Sargento Sharp Cheddar, Natural Cheese, Fine Cut. Sargento describes this product as real natural cheese shredded fresh from the block. That statement is fair. Its primary ingredient is cheddar, made from pasteurized milk, cheese culture, salt, enzymes, and annatto for color. The label then adds potato starch to prevent caking, powdered cellulose to prevent caking, and natamycin is a mold inhibitor. 3 functional additions are not outrageous for a packaged convenience product, but the combination tells you exactly what Sargento prioritized. The strands need to remain loose, attractive, and usable throughout distribution and refrigerated storage. The fine cut adds another concern for cooking. Imagine comparing a pile of thick, hand-grated ribbons with hundreds of hair-thin factory shreds. The finely cut pile has much more exposed surface touching the coating. Drop those Sargento shreds onto hot chili or scrambled eggs and they will soften. Stir them directly into a delicate cream sauce, and you have less room for error. High heat can force the cheese proteins to tighten while the coating absorbs moisture from the sauce. That combination encourages a grainy or overly thick result. There is also an important marketing lesson here. Natural cheese describes the cheese portion. It does not promise that the bag contains cheese and nothing else. Both statements can be true. The cheddar can be genuine natural cheese, and the finished shredded product can contain several added processing aids. Sargento even explains that its cellulose and potato starch are used as anti-caking agents, not as cheese substitutes. That transparency deserves credit. Still, if smooth melting is the goal, buy the Sargento block instead. You keep the cheddar and leave the coating behind. Number 5. Great value. Fat-free shredded mozzarella. A current Great Value sharp cheddar listing shows that some varieties have moved to a starch-based anti-caking blend without cellulose. That is exactly why condemning an entire brand would be careless. The fat-free shredded mozzarella is the product to watch. Listings for the 7-ounce bag identify fat-free mozzarella made from skim milk, followed by potato starch and powdered cellulose to prevent caking, plus natamycin. Fat-free mozzarella already faces a structural disadvantage. Fat contributes richness, lubrication, flavor delivery, and the soft mouthfeel people expect from melted cheese. Remove it, and the remaining protein network can become firm and rubbery under heat. Now coat the thin shreds with moisture-managing powder. You are asking a low-fat cheese to melt smoothly while carrying ingredients designed to keep its surfaces separate. That does not make the product useless. Someone tracking calories may accept the texture trade-off, especially when sprinkling a small quantity over a salad, baked potato, or egg white omelet. The package serves a specific nutritional preference. It is a poor shortcut for pizza, though. Traditional low-moisture mozzarella balances protein, moisture, acidity, salt, and fat to create stretch and browning. Fat-free mozzarella may soften, but it cannot duplicate the same flowing texture merely because the package uses the word mozzarella. It is an even worse choice for a silky cheese sauce. A cook may compensate by adding more milk, more butter, or another cheese. At that point, the original fat-saving calculation starts to collapse. The practical verdict is simple. If you need fat-free cheese for a cold or lightly heated application, judge it according to that purpose. If you want a bubbling pizza or creamy baked pasta, skip this particular bag and use full-fat block mozzarella. Number 4. Kraft Triple Cheddar Finely Shredded Cheese. Kraft demonstrates why shoppers need to read every variety instead of memorizing one opinion about a company. Current ingredient information for Kraft Mild Cheddar. Finely shredded, lists modified cornstarch and natamycin without powdered cellulose. Other Kraft products have carried more elaborate systems. Ingredient listings for triple cheddar have included potato starch, cellulose powder, calcium sulfate, and natamycin. The cheddar blend itself sounds appealing. White cheddar, sharp cheddar, and mild cheddar promise a more interesting flavor than one anonymous orange cheese. But a sophisticated blend loses some of its appeal when every fine strand arrives covered by a multi-part flow system. Potato starch and cellulose manage moisture. Calcium sulfate helps keep the shreds flowing. Natamycin limits mold. None of those ingredients turns the underlying cheddar into imitation cheese. They turn it into a highly engineered convenience product. That distinction is more useful than calling it fake. The triple cheddar bag makes sense when speed matters. It can cover nachos, tacos, casseroles, and baked potatoes without requiring a grater. It is less impressive when the recipe is supposed to showcase the flavor and texture of 3 cheddars. Consider homemade macaroni and cheese. The sauce already contains starch if it begins with flour and butter. Adding factory-coated cheese introduces another uncontrolled source of starch and fiber. The sauce can thicken before all the cheese integrates, tempting the cook to raise the heat. Higher heat tightens the proteins and makes separation more likely. The cook then blames the recipe, adds more milk, and wonders why the sauce tastes less cheesy than expected. There is a reason professional instructions often tell you to remove a sauce from direct heat before gradually adding freshly grated cheese. Gentle heat gives the proteins and fat a chance to disperse without seizing. For Kraft, the verdict depends on the exact label. The current mild cheddar has a simpler coating than the triple cheddar ingredient listing we reviewed. If your local triple cheddar bag still lists cellulose, multiple starches, calcium sulfate, and natamycin, leave it for topping duty. Number 3. Lucerne fat-free shredded mozzarella. Lucerne's fat-free mozzarella repeats the most troublesome combination on this list. Retail ingredient information identifies fat-free mozzarella, potato starch, powdered cellulose, and natamycin. Like the Great Value version, the problem is cumulative rather than scandalous. Fat has been removed from a cheese known for the way it melts. Then the resulting shreds are coated to keep them from joining inside the package. That is excellent bag behavior and questionable pizza behavior. The white shreds may look almost identical to ordinary mozzarella when cold. Heat exposes the difference. Instead of relaxing into glossy pools with browned blisters, fat-free cheese is more likely to become dry, tough, or skin-like. The anti-caking coating can make that result appear even dustier, especially if the product is heavily applied, or the bag has been stored long enough for the exposed shreds to lose moisture. There's another trap. People frequently buy fat-free cheese because the nutrition panel appears dramatically lighter, then use twice as much in pursuit of the flavor and satisfaction that were removed with the fat. A normal portion of a stronger, full-fat cheese may provide a better experience without requiring a snowy mountain of shreds. That choice depends on someone's dietary needs, of course. The point is not that everyone should maximize fat. The point is that melting performance cannot be predicted from calories alone. Lucerne's standard full-fat shredded cheeses may use different anti-caking mixtures, so check those labels separately. The fat-free mozzarella is the one we would skip for any recipe advertised as gooey, creamy, stretchy, or velvety. If those adjectives appear in the recipe title, the bag is already fighting the assignment. Number 2, Wegmans shredded mozzarella, cheese pizza topping. Wegmans sells a shredded mozzarella pizza topping, whose ingredient information lists mozzarella, made from pasteurized milk, cheese culture, salt, and microbial enzymes. It then lists potato starch and powdered cellulose as anti-caking ingredients. This formula is shorter than several products we have covered. There is no need to invent a dramatic accusation. The reason it ranks this high is the promise created by the words pizza topping. Pizza is one of the clearest places to observe cheese functionality. You can see how quickly the shreds fuse, how evenly the cheese spreads, whether oil separates, how the surface browns, and whether the slice produces a flexible pull or a stiff sheet. Anti-caking ingredients can influence those visible results, although cheese age, moisture, fat, acidity, baking temperature, and application rate matter too. Blaming every disappointing pizza on cellulose would be lazy food science. Still, the product's central job is melting into a unified cheese layer. A coating designed to keep the shreds physically separate deserves scrutiny. There's a convenient home experiment. Make 2 small pizzas using the same dough and sauce. Cover one with the Wegmans topping and grate a similarly priced block of low-moisture mozzarella over the other. Weigh the cheese if you want a fair comparison. Bake them side by side. Compare how quickly the shreds disappear, how the cheese browns, whether the surface looks dusty or oily, and how each slice bends after resting for 2 minutes. The difference may be modest, or it may be obvious. Either result is more valuable than a viral claim about eating wood. Wegmans also sells cheese through service areas where products may be shredded locally. Those formulas can vary. Read the printed label on the package you are holding. For salads, tacos, and weeknight convenience, the pizza topping may be acceptable. When you're fermenting dough for 2 days and heating a pizza steel to its limit, spending 1 additional minute with a box grater is the better trade. Number 1, Murray's Shredded Gruyere. This is the most frustrating product on the list because Gruyere is exactly the kind of cheese people buy for its melting qualities. Retail ingredient information for Murray's Shredded Gruyere lists Gruyere made from cultured milk, salt, and enzymes, followed by powdered cellulose to prevent caking. That is a remarkably short label compared with the other skipped products. So why place it at number 1? Because of what people make with Gruyere. Gruyere belongs in French onion soup, gratins, croque-monsieur, fondue, quiche, and luxurious cheese sauces. These dishes depend on the cheese integrating smoothly with liquid, bread, potatoes, butter, or another cheese. A customer buying cheap taco cheese may knowingly choose convenience. Someone paying a premium for Gruyere is paying for flavor, aroma, aging, and function. Covering that cheese in cellulose saves a little preparation, but introduces an unnecessary variable into recipes where texture matters. Fondue is the perfect example. A traditional preparation combines grated cheese with wine, acid, and often a controlled amount of starch. The cook wants to determine how much starch enters the pot and when it enters. Pre-coated Gruyere makes that decision at the factory. You do not know how much cellulose was applied, and you cannot adjust it out of the recipe. This does not guarantee fondue failure. Cheese sauces are emulsions, and their success depends on temperature, acidity, moisture, agitation, and the age of the cheese. A careful cook can produce good results with many pre-shredded products. The question is why you would pay a specialty cheese price and accept the compromise. Buy a Gruyere wedge. Chill it well, grate it with the large holes of a box grater, and add it gradually over gentle heat. The flavor will be fresher, the dose will remain under your control, and the unused wedge will generally resist drying better than thousands of exposed shreds. Murray's shredded Gruyere is real cheese. It simply takes one of the world's great melting cheeses and sells it in a form that is less ideal for melting. That earns the top skip. We have spent enough time in the penalty box. 3 products handle the convenience problem more thoughtfully. Number 3, Tillamook Farm Style Thick Cut Shreds. Tillamook's Farm Style line was developed without powdered cellulose. Instead of producing hair-thin strands, the company uses thick, irregular-looking shreds intended to resemble cheese grated at home. That difference is functional as well as visual. Larger shreds have less surface area relative to their mass. Less exposed surface means the cheese does not need to behave like a bag of dry confetti. Tillamook still uses an anti-caking strategy. Product documentation for varieties such as shredded sharp cheddar lists potato starch, while natamycin may be used as a mold inhibitor. This is not an additive-free bag. It is a better compromise. Potato starch is easy to recognize, and the formula avoids the potato starch plus cellulose combination found in many competing products. The thick cut also performs well when the cheese needs to remain visible, such as on enchiladas, breakfast casseroles, or rustic macaroni and cheese. The melt may not equal freshly grated block cheese, especially in a delicate sauce, but among widely distributed supermarket shreds, Tillamook Farm Style is a practical step up. Pay attention to the word farm style. Tillamook also sells fine-cut varieties, and formulas can differ between flavors and package sizes. A recommendation for farm style. Thick cut should not be stretched across every shredded product carrying the Tillamook name. The bag should list the cheese ingredients first, followed by potato starch and any disclosed mold inhibitor. If powdered cellulose appears on a future reformulation, reassess the product. Loyalty belongs to the label, not the logo. Tillamook works best for the shopper who refuses to grate cheese on a busy Tuesday but still cares about melt and texture. It is convenient cheese with a relatively restrained coating system, not a magical bag, untouched by food manufacturing. Number 2, Rumiano Organic Shredded Cheese. Rumiano's organic shredded mozzarella and Mexican blend take a similarly restrained approach. The company explicitly states that it does not use cellulose in these products. The mozzarella ingredient list contains organic pasteurized milk, enzymes, sea salt, potato starch, and cheese cultures. Its Mexican blend adds organic peppers to the cheddar and pepper jack mixture. There is still potato starch. The shreds need some protection from clumping, and Rumiano chose a single familiar starch rather than a cellulose-heavy multi-ingredient blend. Just as important, the published mozzarella ingredient list does not include natamycin. That gives Rumiano one of the cleaner pasteurized options in this comparison. Pasteurization matters for shoppers who want to avoid raw milk products, including people at increased risk from foodborne illness. Rumiano provides the cleaner label convenience without requiring that particular trade-off. The cheese is made from organic milk and carries additional sourcing claims, but those are not the reason it ranks highly here. Organic certification does not automatically guarantee better melting, and a green pasture on the package cannot replace the ingredient panel. Rumiano earns its place because the formula is short and the function of the added starch is clear. Use it on pizza, baked pasta, quesadillas, and casseroles when pre-shredded convenience is important. For an ultra-smooth stovetop sauce, a block still gives you more control. Even potato starch can affect a recipe when enough coated cheese enters a small amount of liquid. Availability may be the biggest drawback. Rumiano is not stocked as widely as Kraft, Sargento, or major store brands, and the smaller organic packages can cost more per ounce. That price difference buys a cleaner formula, not a completely coating-free product. Whether that is worth it depends on how often you cook with cheese and whether you're paying for convenience or performance. Number 1, Raw Farm Shredded Raw Cheddar. Raw Farm's shredded cheddar has the shortest ingredient list in this lineup. The company lists whole raw milk, vegetable rennet, cultures, and kosher sea salt. There is no powdered cellulose, potato starch, cornstarch, calcium sulfate, or natamycin. The product is genuine shredded cheese without a powdery anti-caking layer. That is why the strands may clump. In this case, clumping is evidence of the trade-off. Cheese naturally wants to stick to cheese when moisture and fat reach the surface. From a cooking perspective, the absence of coating is attractive. The cheddar can melt without adding an unknown dose of starch or plant fiber to the recipe. But raw milk cheese requires an honest safety discussion. Raw Farm does not pasteurize the milk used for this cheddar. Raw milk products can carry harmful bacteria, and public health agencies advise people who are pregnant, elderly, immunocompromised, or very young to avoid unpasteurized dairy products. Aging requirements reduce some risks, but do not make every raw milk cheese risk-free. Do not let a fear of cellulose push a medically vulnerable person toward a product with a more meaningful microbiological consideration. That would be trading a permitted plant fiber additive for a risk that deserves far greater respect. For adults who intentionally consume legal raw milk cheese and understand that issue, Raw Farm offers the cleanest shredded formula of the 9 products discussed. For everyone else, the best answer is neither a heavily coated bag nor raw cheese. Buy pasteurized cheese in a block and grate it yourself. A block of cheddar commonly contains cultured pasteurized milk, salt, enzymes, and sometimes annatto for color. A block of low-moisture mozzarella may be similarly simple. Because the cheese remains one solid piece, it does not require an anti-caking powder. Grate only what the recipe needs. Cold cheese is firmer and easier to shred, so leave it refrigerated until the last moment. Use the large holes for pizza and casseroles. Use the smaller holes when you need rapid melting, but add the cheese gradually so it does not form a dense clump. For sauces, lower the heat before adding cheese. A violently boiling pot can tighten dairy proteins and squeeze out fat, even when the cheese contains no cellulose. Freshly grated cheese improves your odds, but it cannot rescue bad temperature control. If a sauce needs help staying emulsified, use an ingredient intentionally. A flour and butter base works for classic macaroni and cheese. A small quantity of sodium citrate can help queso or cheese sauce remain smooth. Cornstarch can stabilize fondue when measured for that recipe. That is very different from discovering an unknown coating after it is already attached to the cheese. You can evaluate any shredded cheese in about 10 seconds. Turn over the bag and find where the cheese ingredients end. Then count what follows. 1 starch is a modest convenience compromise. Cellulose plus 2 starches, calcium sulfate, and natomycin indicates a product engineered heavily for package stability. A fine cut raises the coated surface area, while a thick cut usually gives the cheese a better chance to behave naturally. Then, match the bag to the job. Cold salad topping? The coating may barely matter. Tacos for a crowded weeknight dinner? Convenience could win. French onion soup, fondue, queso, Alfredo, or cheese sauce with only a few ingredients? Buy the block. The 6 skipped products are not plastic, and they are not secretly bags of sawdust. They contain dairy cheese. Their weakness is that the manufacturers optimize them for transportation, shelf life, and loose shreds before optimizing them for your saucepan. The 3 better products reduce that compromise, but only one eliminates anti-caking ingredients completely, and its raw milk status will not suit everyone. That leaves the least glamorous winner sitting beside the bags. A cold block of pasteurized cheese, a basic metal grater, and roughly 60 seconds of work. The perfect shredded cheese has been in the dairy case the entire time. It just has not been shredded yet. If this breakdown saved your next cheese sauce, subscribe. We investigate familiar grocery products by reading the ingredient list, checking the science, and finding out what actually deserves space in your refrigerator.